So it's Wednesday night, and we're here together, and I'm delighted about that. Thank you. I um I invited you to say a little something in the chat box before we begin, and Connie responded, and Jasper agrees, and I have a feeling that there are other people that are in touch with this as well. I certainly have been experiencing it. Connie writes, "Seems like the last few days I've been absorbing race consciousness fear, and by that, Connie, I think you mean consensus consciousness, like human consciousness, the fear that's in that level of consciousness. My body feels anxious and cautious, which is not my more normal state." Yeah. So I would imagine that there are a number of us here tonight that would be able to say, yeah, it's really been amped up this week. Um, Now, perhaps some of you have been feeling it kind of consistently all through the whole COVID-19 experience up until now. Um, but I've also been experiencing an intensification of the anxiety that's in human consciousness. And I think it's very helpful for us, as I've said before, to remember um, that a lot of the anxiety that we're feeling isn't being generated by some personal self. It's being experienced on a very broad scale, on the macro level on the planet right now, probably in unprecedented ways, which is not to say that anxiety is new for the human consciousness. It's just for it to be so global, um, and for us to be so in touch with what's going on in the world. And so I want to explore just for a bit here the topic of anxiety. Um, One of my goals or intentions for the class is for us to be able to align with the soul. And that's a very abstract statement because, what is the soul and how do we do such things? And so one way to talk about the soul is to talk about what it's not, is contrast it with ego. And ego is definitely the source of our anxiety, both individually and collectively. So anxiety is almost always about uh, the future. It's almost always fear or concern or worry about what might happen next, what might happen tomorrow, what I'm afraid will happen next, So it's very helpful to see that anxiety, by definition, is not something that actually is even related to the present. Now, there are other kinds of fears. If I'm being chased by a grizzly bear, in that moment, I'm feeling a lot of fear, not anxiety. I'm feeling, perhaps terror. Anxiety is different. Anxiety is the concern about it, or the worry about what's going to happen next, what could happen tomorrow, where am I going to get how am I going to stay safe? How am I going to stay alive? What's happening on the planet? Should we reopen the economy? Because so many people are suffering with joblessness and financial stress. And so should we open the economy? But then if we open the economy, aren't we right back to steepening the curve and more people getting the coronavirus, which means that we could, perhaps get it as well? And well, then let's not open let's stay with our social distancing. But then, do you see, that's how anxiety talks. For anxiety, there's always something to be afraid about that could happen next. Now, many of us have experienced this a lot of our life. We are both sensitive to our own experiences. Many people who will be listening to this either in person or later on YouTube have had childhood experiences, family of origin experiences that have been very painful and perhaps traumatic. And that sets up in the mind an expectation that life is going to be hard, that I can't trust people, that people I'm supposed to trust will leave me or hurt me or use me or reject me. And so that's one of the sources of anxiety in the mind, is that we have this event-based anxiety about what could happen based on what has happened. So that the mind tends to explain the present and predict the future based on what's happened in the past. So I just want you to get this feel, if you could tune into your anxiety right now. And I should say that for some of you watching this, you might be saying, well, is that a good idea? I mean, isn't it a better idea to kind of keep anxiety at bay? And the answer is no. Actually, we want to bring everything that we're experiencing into the light of awareness. Something very powerful, I hope to speak to this tonight, something very powerful happens when we bring things into the light of awareness. So I'd like you to do that right now. Let yourself be aware of the anxiety that is in your system. Now, I'm not inviting you to make anything up. If you're utterly at peace in this moment, you don't have any anxiety whatsoever, that's totally fine. But if you can just kind of get in touch with the personality self. Now, remember, the personality self is the physical body, the emotional body, and the lower mental body, our conditioning. So get in touch with these three layers and see if you can get in touch with that subtle, and for some of you, it won't be very subtle, kind of sense of anxiety. Like this just sense of kind of being on yellow alert. Even if the mind can't really find a reason for it. Here we are, safe at home, perhaps, and our cupboards have food in them, and maybe we're able to work from home, and there just doesn't seem to be any reason why we should be anxious, but we are. Get in touch with that. And don't make it bad, and don't be critical of yourself for having it. For others of you, you might be out of work, and maybe your cupboards are not so full of food, and mind seems to have reason to be anxious. So if you pay attention to the anxiety in the system, it's a snowball of two kind of factors. One is the mental factor in the mental body, which is some fearful story about the future. I'm going to run out of food. I'm going to get the coronavirus. What if? It's usually what if is usually the nature of the anxiety thoughts in the mind. What if I get the coronavirus? What if I run out of food? What if the world comes to an end? What if, our our system collapses? What if? What if? What if? So then the what if thought is supported by fearful energy. It's the energy that makes the story feel real, right? Without the emotional energy, the story feels rather flat and two-dimensional, but it's filled out into this three-dimensional, this very kind of real thing when we add the anxious energy to it. So now the anxious energy supports the story and makes the story feel real, which intensifies the story, which intensifies the anxiety, which intensifies the story, which intensifies the anxiety, until this becomes our living reality. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is this something that you can relate to as we talk about it? Now, it could be something that the mind is saying that is like it's about oneself. Maybe the mind doesn't understand that there's a lot of anxious energy in the culture, a lot of anxious energy in the world, right? A lot of anxious energy in the world right now. Maybe the mind doesn't understand that. So the mind is putting personal stories related to oneself, to the anxiety that it feels, right? So it can happen that way. What I've just described is it's starting with a story and the emotion supports it, but it can happen the other way around, which is our sensitive hearts tune in to the energy of anxiety, and then the mind gives a story to support it, to explain it, I should say, right? So in that case, we are tuning into, unconsciously perhaps, unknowingly tuning into the anxiety that's in human consciousness, and the mind will give that some kind of story of, oh, I wonder, if I have cancer. I wonder if this sniffle I've got is, or this dry cough I have is going to turn into coronavirus, or the mind will put some story to the anxiety that you're picking up from elsewhere, in order to justify it and to explain it. So the point is, the anxiety that we have is comprised of both story and emotion, and we can intervene at either one of these bodies. We can intervene at the emotional level, or we can intervene at the mental level. We can catch the story, as many of you have been trained to do with Byron Katie and her book Loving What Is. We catch the story, we run it through inquiry, we help the mind to let the story go, and as soon as the story is gone, the anxiety dissipates. We can do the other as well. We can bring loving awareness to the anxiety and focus in on the anxiety itself, and not let it snowball, and just hold the light and love of awareness, or the light and love of the soul, on the anxiety, which will help the anxiety to dissipate and to empty out. And then the story has nothing to make it feel real, and it kind of collapses. Either of those are fine approaches to working with anxiety. The trick is to be self-aware enough to be able to go, I can really feel like I've got some anxiety going right now. I can feel it in the way that my body clenches. I can feel it in the way that there's this kind of ever-present rock in my stomach, or this heaviness in my chest, like I'm having like maybe a hard time breathing, and the mind says, oh, this is just allergies. No, there's something else to it here. These are indicators that anxiety is up for you, and it's very beneficial to have some ways of working with it, which I'd like to share with you tonight. So if there's any question as I go on, if you have any question about the description that I've just given you of anxiety, any question that you'd like to ask, any clarification that you need, please type it in to the chat box, and I will try to address that. I'm hoping so much to be able to help you to not only understand your anxiety, but have a way of working with it tonight that results in greater soul alignment. Everything we do in this class, my intention is, it will result in greater soul alignment, whether it's our discussion or whether it's our meditations. Now, the problem with discussion is that I'm here in my room by myself, and I'm usually with you in an auditorium, and we are having kind of a dialogue, and I feed very much off that. So if there is anything that you'd like to ask or comment on, don't hesitate to chat it in or to write it in the chat box. That'll be very helpful. So in contrast to the anxiety of the ego is the pervasive tranquility and equanimity of the soul. It's a phenomenal contrast, and I hope that you'll experience it tonight as we move through our practices. To have an intervention where we can come into the sanctuary of the heart and to discover that inner light that is that supreme consciousness that we've been calling soul here in our class, to be able to access that and to bring the power and the light and the grace of that to bear on all the struggles and all the aspects of suffering in the personality is a tremendous benefit. And I believe as we look back on this time, we will see that it was an invitation, in addition to whatever else it may be, that it was an invitation for us to learn to do this. It's just impossible for us to go on living our lives right now as though everything is normal. And as I recall, a month ago, 2 months ago, normal wasn't that great either. I mean, normal had its issues. The world was struggling before the pandemic. It's just that now it's at a level of intensity that we simply can't deny. It's invaded our comfortable little lives, and here we are having to deal with it. And I'd like to suggest to you that mostly the it that we have to work with or deal with is our own consciousness, our own thoughts and feelings about what's happening in the world. We have the power to intervene there. We don't have much power to change what's happening with the virus, except perhaps in these ways of social distancing and keeping our hands clean and being aware of what we're touching and so forth. But in addition, the way it's, in general, the way in which the virus is spreading, we don't have a lot of say about that. What we do have say over is the way that we relate to that, the way that we think and feel and relate to all that's going on in the outer world. Let me read what you've written. You would think that knowing it isn't my anxiety or believing that it isn't would be enough, but it isn't, I find. It can ease it, but still sits there to some degree right now. Totally. That's a really a great and astute kind of observation, that just because in my mind I kind of understand what anxiety is, it doesn't automatically make it go away. And I'd like to suggest that that's because we're being invited to learn to bring the soul to bear. It isn't enough for the mental part of the personality to go, oh, okay, I get it. It's not really mine. All right, no big deal. It's about the future. It hasn't happened. All right, I'm good. It doesn't really happen like that, especially because that kind of thinking doesn't sweep the anxiety away. So this can't be fully, in my opinion, this can't be fully resolved from the personality. I quote often that great Einstein quote, that you can't solve a problem in the state of consciousness that created it. So anxiety is generated in the mind. And it's generated at the local or individual level, and it's generated at the collective level. You and I are microcosms of a macrocosm. And so we are being invited to learn to bring, in my opinion, to bring the truth and the love and the inspiration and the grace of our higher consciousness to bear on these things. And only that, I believe, will resolve certainly our anxiety, but not only that, but the problems in the world and the issues in the world that perpetually generate our concerns, that generate our problems that need to be solved so badly. So let's do a little work with this anxiety, shall we? And I'd like to help you to discover in this practice, this is my intention, that the anxiety is being observed by awareness. And awareness is not itself anxious. That the awareness that's watching anxiety is not itself anxious. To say this using the language of the soul, as the soul observes everything happening in the personality and in the physical world, the soul doesn't share the qualities, doesn't share the anxieties, doesn't share the stories that are taking place in the personality. And that is why the soul has the capacity to intervene and help to quiet those stories and soothe those anxieties so effectively. All right, let's see if we can get into the experience of that. So again, to start with, I'd like you make sure that you're sitting up nice and straight. Take a nice deep breath, close the eyes, and relax the body. Now, before we do too much of that kind of work, I want you just to be conscious of your anxiety. I say your anxiety, and it would be best if we just said, be conscious of the anxiety, the energy of anxiety that is currently circulating in your system. Just be aware of that. Perhaps you can identify where the anxiety seems to be present in the body. Perhaps some of you are not able to identify that. It seems to be more of a pervasive thing. I like to put, when I'm exploring my emotional energy, I like to put it on a intensity scale, 0 to 10, 10 being very intense. Where would you put your anxiety on that intensity scale as you're currently experiencing it? Now, our tendency when we get anxious is to become it. And what we're practicing right now is the ability to observe it. Let it be present. Don't deny it or repress it or try to get away from it. We're exploring it. And when I say we, I mean awareness. Notice right now that you are aware of the anxiety. So, in a way, it feels like there's two things. It's actually one thing, but it feels like it's two things. One is the anxiety energy, the energy pattern of anxiety, and the awareness that's observing it. Questions like, where do you feel it in the body and where is it on the intensity scale, help you to objectify the anxiety, which is to say, it helps you to make the anxiety an object of awareness rather than something you are. Anxiety is something you're experiencing, it's not something you are. So experience it as fully as it is there to experience. And at the same time, remind yourself, I am the awareness that's watching this anxiety. As though you were watching the anxiety from behind it, as though you were stepping back behind and watching the anxious energy in the emotional body. And perhaps you're also aware of some of the thoughts that are spinning in the mental body. See if you can identify any of the thoughts that contribute to the anxiety. So, anxiety is not distant, it's not detached in that way. It's detached in the sense that it's not identified with what it's watching. This is a very important skill to cultivate, the capacity to watch my emotional experience without identifying with that experience, without the experience like taking me over, without losing myself in it. Now, see if you can be curious about the nature of this energy as you just shine the light of awareness on it, as you're just present with it right now and curiously watching with awareness. See if you can perceive whether this anxiety is coming from your own internal processing or whether you're picking some of it up mm, from the larger collective consciousness. So this involves moving a little closer, like if we were looking at the anxiety under a magnifying glass or under a microscope, we would like amp up the magnification. We draw in a little closer, really explore this, just the nature of this. What is the nature of this anxiety? Is it substantial? Is it a self-existent kind of an energy? If not, what is it dependent upon? Where is it coming from? And again, here is where you might get in touch with some of the stories that might be contributing to some of your anxiety. Could be stories about, you know, your work or money or uh, what's happening in the world. Could be any what's happening with your loved ones. What's happening with those in cities where the coronavirus is just raging through the city, like in New York. So just as you can intensify the magnification and look very, very intently and closely and almost dissect the energy with awareness, you can also pan back, which is what I invite you to do right now. Pan back and give the anxiety more space. Widen the field of awareness and see how that affects your experience of the anxiety. And now we're going to make a subtle but very important shift. I'd like you to become a little more interested in the awareness that's watching. We've been kind of absorbing attention in the experience of anxiety itself. And you can determine within yourself what effect that may have had on the anxiety. What I'd like you to do now is be a little more interested in the awareness that's watching the anxiety. What is the nature of this that is watching? Right now, What we're going to do, I'd like you to, if you're not already there, I'd like you to center your attention in your anxiety. Many of you will experience your anxiety here, um, in the chest, in the heart center already. Some of you will be experiencing it in the belly and so forth. So if you're not already there, center your attention in your heart center. Right at the surface of the heart center, that's the emotional heart. There can be lots of emotional energies here. Anxiety perhaps may be dominant, but there could also be a great deal of sadness. That's very present in the world as well. Could be frustration, agitation, impatience. Could be just a strong longing for life to get back to normal. That then kicks into a greater anxiety that perhaps it never will. That's at the surface. I want you to think that awareness is coming from deeper in. Like, let's go look for the source of awareness. So we have to go deeper in the heart center, as though you're penetrating back into a huge cave. And all the noise and all the movement is at the mouth of the cave. And the further back into the cave you go, the quieter it gets and the more spacious it gets. The walls and ceiling of the cave like recede, and we move into this immense space the deeper we go. And it's quiet. Can you get in touch with stillness? And perhaps even begin to sense the energy of peace. And you keep walking back toward the back of the heart center. You keep moving attention deeper into the heart center. And we're just going to have this visualization. We're moving deeper into this immense cave that is utterly still and silent. And as you go back deeper, you can see in the distance an opening, and you head toward that opening, going farther and farther back into the heart center, toward the back of the heart center. And we get all the way back to the back of the heart center, and that opening, it turns out, is a portal. And I want you to step through the portal into the space behind the heart. It's no longer a cave. Now it like you step through into the cosmos, into galaxies spinning and stars moving and suns coming and going. See if you can feel how, as you move from being in the heart center to being behind the heart center, into the space behind the heart center. You've shifted into an immense state, shift in consciousness, shifted into higher consciousness. And can you just let yourself be in this space behind the heart, this luminous space behind the heart? Can you be aware of the qualities of this space behind the heart? It's not a physical space, it's a higher level of consciousness. Tranquil, silent, utterly still. Let thoughts just fall away. And can you perceive that in the space behind the heart, in this luminous, tranquil space behind the heart, it's just, this is consciousness free of fear. There's no anxiety here. There's a sense of great well being, of wholeness. There's no boundary to this space behind the heart. Infinite intelligence and love. And it is the source and substance of our awareness. Awareness is home here in the space behind the heart. See if for a moment you can shift from thinking that you are a body floating in the space behind the heart. Shift from that to experiencing yourself as this consciousness, as this higher consciousness. That it's what you have always been and actually are. It's what you've always been, just behind the drama of the personality. Just for a moment, let the body fall away. The idea that you are a body, let that fall away. Let the body dissolve and merge into this great consciousness, this soul consciousness. And again, see if you can feel the contrast between what you're experiencing here and what you were experiencing 10 minutes ago as you were kind of very up close and personal with anxiety. Notice the contrast between these states, these levels of consciousness. And for the soul, there is no fear because there is no separation. Everything is an expression of this one supreme consciousness. Everything comes from it, everything returns to it. Everything comes from the supreme consciousness, is a manifestation of the supreme consciousness, and returns to it. Even though the experience between coming from and returning to can be quite dramatic and even traumatic, everything is safely held. To use a more poetic language, everything is transpiring in the divine heart. Everything is safe within the divine heart. No matter what it looks like to the mind and to the personality, no matter how the body experiences it, everything is safe within the divine heart. And from the soul's perspective, the divine heart is all it sees. Including whatever may be happening in the personality. That too, the soul sees as a manifestation of the divine heart. Everything happening in the personality, all the drama and trauma that's taken place in the life of this personality is also a perfect expression of the divine heart, no matter how the mind interprets it. And the more the mind can align with the perspective and understanding and wisdom of the soul, the quicker it will lose its anxiety. And so let's experiment with that. Let's bring this consciousness that we're experiencing in the space behind the heart, this open, tranquil, spacious, loving, light, full, graceful consciousness. Let's bring it back through the portal at the back of the heart center and let it seep into, let the light radiate forward into the heart center. See if you can find again at the surface of the heart whatever anxiety was there, whatever sadness, whatever frustration, whatever impatience, whatever reactivity you might have been working with at the beginning of the meditation. And now just allow this light and love of the soul to pour into these energies at the surface of the heart. Just feel it pour in from behind. And visualize it as brilliant light penetrating into the shadow and just transmuting and transforming everything that it touches. Be awareness. Infusing into these energies as love and light. Let me say that again. Be the soul. Pure, loving awareness. infusing love and light into everything that feels anxious, all stories in the mind, all emotional energies, everything in the mind that is not truth, everything in the emotional body that is not love. Let truth and love, let soul, light, and truth and love penetrate into them, infuse into them. Anywhere in the body mind, anywhere in the personality, physically, emotionally, and mentally, where you feel any kind of discomfort, any pain, any unhappiness, any despair, any anxiety, sadness, fear of any kind, inadequacy, frustration, reactivity, discouragement, depression, any of it, let the light of the soul flow to it. Be the awareness that, that is aware of and penetrates into these non-truth and non-love energies. Begin to visualize that the body is both filled with this brilliant light and surrounded by, like the light has also now penetrated out into the energy field, the very aura around the body, so that everything now is filled with, infused with the light of awareness, of truth, of love, of grace. And if you can, stay more identified as this higher consciousness and see if you can not yet kind of snap back into a familiar state of consciousness that's more identified with the experience of body and emotion and mind. See if you can be the open awareness. Like your awareness is just a focal point of that immense universal field of pure love and light. It's just a focal point. And we share that field. I have a focal point that's exploring the experience of this personality, and you have a focal point that's exploring the personality that you identify with. But if we track, as we did a moment ago, that if we track that awareness backwards, we fall back into this immense universal consciousness that is pure love and infinite intelligence, and that is intimately engaged and committed to helping the personality and all personalities, all forms, to come into the truth of who and what we actually are, no matter how long it takes. And so, just before we end the meditation, then feel that you are expansive, not contracted into a small body. You're expansive. The consciousness that you are operates in the personality, in the physical, emotional, and mental levels. And we want to invoke more and more and more of that. In this moment, see if you can feel that you are the expansive consciousness. And then repeat these lines of the soul mantra after me. I am the soul. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. Again, I am the soul. Feel yourself to be expansive, to be awareness. I am the light divine. And feel yourself to be filled with and surrounded by this brilliant light of infinite consciousness, of divine consciousness. I am love. And feel your heart center swell and open and the light of love radiate in all directions. I am will. And feel power resonate in the navel chakra, the belly, the lower dantian, the hara. Feel power resonate there. God aligned will. And the last line, I am fixed design. And concentrate your attention in the third eye in the center of the head. Just feel an infinite intelligence there and a deep sense of soul purpose. You're here in the world for a reason. It's not a mistake. It's not a fluke. It's not a coincidence. But your soul wants to manifest in and through this personality in a way that brings benefit and change and transformation and upliftment to human consciousness. I am the soul. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. Now take a nice deep breath. Feel how the chair or the couch is supporting your body. As you begin to open your eyes, see if you can allow yourself to remain identified to some degree with pure awareness, operating in and through this personality, looking through the eyes, loving through the heart. And now, in contrast with where we began, just look to see if there's any difference in the level of anxiety that you're feeling. And to the extent that anxiety is still present, that's totally okay. You just attend to it with this loving awareness. Just give love to it. It's no problem. It's not you. Just have the intention. I send love to this anxiety that I feel and to its origin across all lifetimes. I send love to this anxiety that I feel and to its origin across all lifetimes. I'm going to say that one more time so that you see we're intending for love to flow to this anxiety no matter where it comes from. It can be something generated by my mind in this moment. It can be something that is tracked with me as a karma from other lifetimes. It can be something I'm picking up from human consciousness that I'm a part of. It doesn't matter. I'm setting the intention. I'm intending now to send love and light to this anxiety, to whatever extent it's there, and to its origins across all lifetimes. Now, with that as your intention, it doesn't matter whether the anxiety goes away. That's not the point. The point is that you're learning to relate to all aspects of the human experience as and from the soul, as and from love. Those are synonymous terms for me. Love, soul, synonymous terms. So the whole point is for you to learn and for me to learn as human beings how to bring to the human experience the wisdom and love and light and power of the soul. So that we can shift from living in an ego-centered way, which is to say a fear and shame-centered way, to living in a soul-centered way, which is to say to live from love and a wisdom that cares for the well-being of all, and a power that can take action on behalf of that. All right. Is there anybody that would like to type in a comment or a question about that experience? Anything about that, either philosophically or cosmologically or theologically? You can write in any of that if you wish, or about the mechanics of um, the practice itself, or just simply what you noticed. Was there any shift in your experience from the time we started to the time we ended? What can you say that you noticed? Yeah, the energy completely shifted for me. Yeah. Yes. And again, that really is often what happens when we do this practice, but it isn't, we're not, and I know that you know that, especially since you've been, those of you that have been in classes with me know this, but it bears repeating, especially to someone who might be new to this, that we're not setting up a tricky technique to get rid of fear and anxiety. We are learning to relate to human suffering from love, from the soul. That's what we're learning. So if the anxiety goes, wonderful. If it stays, matters not. It's how we're relating to it that matters, rather than losing ourselves in it, running from it, dissociating from it, doing whatever we can to distract from it. We're becoming more conscious of ourself as consciousness. We're becoming more aware of ourself as awareness, and extending the power of awareness and love to all aspects of human suffering. We learn to do this best in the lab of our own life. And then as we learn to do it in the lab of our own life, we have this opportunity. We're always given the opportunity to live in this way with others. Let me read. Does anxiety ever present as anger? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great question. Anxiety presents in a lot of interesting ways. Typically, what happens is when we get anxious, we immediately move into um, um, control mode. Why control? Because anxiety, mind says, I feel anxious because of what's going on in the outer world. So then it stands to reason that if I could just control what's happening in the outer world, then I would be less anxious. So control is an indirect fear management strategy. Now, anger comes in because most of the time when we're trying to control the outer world, things don't go the way we want them to go. And so then we get angry. Can you see how that works? We get judgmental of things. We get critical of things. We amp up our intensity and our frustration. All of this is an indication that things aren't going the way we want them to go, the way we think they need to go, so that we're not afraid any longer. But of course, it never works that way. I've said this before. Can you see what a setup for anxiety is to believe that I have to be in control to keep bad things from happening, A, and B, that I'm not in control of any of these things. I need to be in control and I'm not, is a setup for intensified anxiety. So again, anger comes in when I'm not getting my way, when my control isn't working. And I get angry and I get critical and I get judgmental and I get more controlling. All of those things are an effort um, to get things to go the way I want them to go, the way I think they need them to go in order for me to feel safe, which never happens. The ego never feels safe. The personality never feels safe until it's aligned with soul, until it feels connected to its own source. Much more present. Yeah, Jasper says he feels much more present. And so that, of course, that's the whole gig, is getting into the present moment, because that's where reality is. Anything else, the anxiety is always about the future, and so we're always kind of leaning out into the future, and just based on the fact that we kind of like lean out of reality, we're not grounded. We don't have a sense of being grounded in any way when we're anxious, and it's so much because we're leaning into the future. So practices, any kind of meditative practices, or qigong, or yoga, or meditative walking, or any of those things, are beneficial because they bring us back into the present moment. Get into your body and breath, because the body and breath are always in the present moment. Most of you, of course, are familiar with Eckhart Tolle's book, but in case you're not, and work, excuse me, but if you're not, I really highly recommend to you a book been around a long time, and that's Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And many of you are like, oh yeah, I've read that book. That was great. If it's been more than 10 years since you've read the book, I would say drag it out again. Be a wonderful time to read it right now. It's so relevant to what we're going through right now. All right. So then what I'd like to do, let me check in. I think what we'll do now is move into the mantra. Let me find it for you. Oh, here it is. So I I would like to invite you to experiment with what effects it would have on your personal life and on your personality for you to integrate some kind of spiritual practice on a daily basis. Now, you know, many of you many of you have this going on, and some of you are like on the brink of it, and some of you meditate, maybe once a week and get it in while you can. And it is hard right now for some of you who have kids at home and all this kind of stuff. uh, it's difficult, but I encourage you best you can to get into some rhythm of mantra and meditation. And there are, of course, many mantras, and those of you that have attended my classes, I've given out many mantras, and any of them are wonderful. Um, in my opinion, probably the ones that I feel strongly about, I can't say that. I mean, I could justify the use of any of the mantras that we have had over our classes together. I just think that the Gayatri mantra is an extremely important mantra right now. It opens us to the downflow of divine grace and divine light. It connects us to higher consciousness and helps us to ground it, to embody it. And that is exactly what the crisis, I believe, that we're in right now, one of the things anyway that it's inviting is to attune to higher consciousness and to determine to bring it into our lives in such a way that we're grounding it and embodying it in the world. But it's not just an airy-fairy idea, and it's not something that we just keep to ourselves in a cave, but it's something that we bring through. So the Gayatri mantra is a very powerful mantra to this end. It connects us with the highest divine light of grace and wisdom and intelligence and power, and opens us to the receiving of it and the grounding of it in our life and in the world, which is so incredibly needed right now. So I'd like to do this with you now. Now, as I always say, I do this at the end of the class because some of you are new to mantra and you're new to meditating, and I don't want you to feel like you have to, this will take us 15 to 20 minutes to say this mantra. And I don't want you to feel like you have to stay. If you're feeling, like you're done and you'd like to leave, then I won't be offended at all. In fact, I won't even know if you log off and go back to your evening. But on the other hand, I'd like you to consider staying in the experience. If we can see mantra not as something just to get through, not just a practice to finish. Okay, we're going to say this 108 times. But if we see this as a sacred vibration, and that every time we say it, it has this blessing in our lives on every level of the being, in every body, the physical, emotional, and mental bodies of the personality, that there is this this invocation of literally of divine consciousness. The Gayatri mantra is an expression of divine consciousness. Every time you say it, it's infused into your body mind a little more. When we do it together like this, I'm going to do a little visualization before we begin. When we do it together like this, it's very powerful. My saying it and your saying it, the vibration comes together. Whether we're saying it out loud or we're saying it quietly, the vibration of it comes together and creates a field of Gayatri mantra vibration, a field, the frequency of the Gayatri mantra that we feel saturated in as we sit in it and do it together. It's incredibly powerful. So I invite you to stay and to let go of your impatience or the idea that, oh, this is lasting so long, and instead just be thinking in terms of, this is such a profound opportunity, such an incredible privilege to be with 30 other people saying this mantra together and having it download into us at this time in this particular time in Earth's history. So let's set the intention of opening ourselves to the inflow, to the inpouring of the light of divine consciousness, the light of divine love and wisdom and inspiration and grace and power and bliss. For this light to descend and move through all aspects of our being, down into the deepest part of our shadow, down into all aspects of the ego, into the cellar of our shadow and all the unresolved issues there, and down into our karmic storehouse where all the unresolved karmas are. And that as we feel filled with and saturated with this divine light, that it would pour through us to those we're connected to, and ultimately into the world itself in just the way that it's needed. That's our intention. Now, I'd like you to visualize, as we get ready to say the mantra, I'd like you to visualize that we're all sitting together in a circle. All 30 of us are sitting together in a circle. And the light of the soul from behind fills the body-mind. And we're going to say this mantra from that light, from that sense, saying it from the space behind the heart, saying it as the soul, invoking it as the soul. So shift back into that sense of higher consciousness, of expansiveness. Now, as we begin to say the mantra, I want you to allow, you don't have to work at this because you're concentrating on the mantra, but just to allow a sense that the light of divine spirit is flowing down into every individual in the circle and into the circle itself. That the more we say it, the more this light fills the circle and surrounds us. That this light of divine consciousness pours into each person individually and into the group collectively for kind of an intensification of this experience. So as we have in the past, we'll say it for a while out loud, and then we'll say it for a while silently. We'll go back and forth like this. Let's begin, and we'll begin kind of slow at first for those that may not be familiar with the mantra. Om Bu Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargovasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Now, silently. And as you say it silently, continue to envision the light coming down into your own system and into the circle that we're all making up here tonight. And let's say it out loud again together. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Right now, quietly, on your own, internally, and visualizing the light pouring down. Let's do a few more out loud now, please, together. Om Bu Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bu Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Now a few more silently, visualizing the light coming down into yourself and all the people gathered. And we'll say out loud together the last five. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Last one. Om Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Tat Saviturvarenyam. Bhargorevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. I just sit for a moment in vibration of the mantra, in the visualization of this group, and the brilliant light that fills us and surrounds us. And let's have the intention for this light to be of great benefit to everyone we're connected with. The people that we're living with here as we shelter at home, all our family, all our friends, all our acquaintances, everyone that we have ever been connected to, all those we are connected to, everyone we will ever be connected to. Let's let this light be of great benefit for them. All right. Thank you so much for joining me in this practice tonight and for bringing your lovely hearts and combining them here to make this a sacred space. It's been wonderful being with you. I look forward to seeing you in a week. Much love. God bless. Namaste.